Hello, everyone, and welcome live to 3Y TV tonight's broadcast of the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. It is The Chase, and we are at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Simbox 200 here tonight. I'm Peter Short, and alongside me is Andre Grandbush. And Andre, Charlotte Motor Speedway, a lot of people say this is the home track of NASCAR, and it's going to be a lot of fun here tonight.
Oh yeah, it's classic mile-and-a-half racing. We got a pretty sizable field too, and as the sun goes down, I think the racing is going to get good. So this is going to be a lot of fun, especially given the fact that this is yet another race here in the championship towards the end. Points are getting really close, especially after last week. I think we saw more points changing hands than we were expecting last week, Peter.
Yeah, that we did. This driver right here, the number 17 machine of Tristan Maher, who was the points leader going into last week's race at Chicagoland Motor Speedway. Well, bad news for him is he had a hardware failure during the race, and the Eclipse Photography number 17 is a little bit on edge here tonight. He thinks he has the hardware fixed up, but he's going to have to do battle for all 200 miles, 134 laps here tonight with the question mark, Andre. Will his hardware hold up? That is a big question mark because he wants to right the ship. He dropped down a couple of positions in the point standings after that big issue last week. He dropped from first down to fourth. Philip Scott in the number 99 is our new points leader entering tonight. 3 points over Nate Maurer, and then another 3 points back is last week's standout, Justin White. Had a great race last week in the number 2 machine, hoping to back that up here tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll just see how it all plays out. But left-hand side of your screen, Andre, again, here tonight, a lot of drivers really close on the scoring pylon.
Yeah, I mean, if you look from first all the way back to 10th, it is less than a tenth of a second that separates these guys. It is pretty absurd how close these guys can get in pace, and I don't think that's going to change in the race either. I think we're going to see a lot of really close racing. I've been watching practice, and it seems like some of these guys are more comfortable down low, some of these guys are more comfortable up top, and that's going to open it up to some multi-racing as Maher is going to pull into the infield, a little bit reminiscent of what happened last week. Hopefully that was voluntary and not yet another failure. Again, like you said, that is a question that'll be looming over his head. That's a piano that is hanging by a string above him, and he's going to have to be worrying about that all night long, especially if he gets a good run going. You know, if he's not having the best night to begin with, maybe he's not going to worry too much. But if you're up there leading laps and you know that that's a possibility, that is going to be anxiety-inducing.
Yeah, that is for sure. We'll keep our eyes on that here tonight. There's the number 47 of Dalton Hayes, currently sitting 20th on the scoring pylon. We have had a good turnout here tonight. Didn't have a great turnout last week at Chicagoland, but here tonight, all these drivers turning up for this 1.5 mile racetrack. Currently sitting down in 20th. Also, league newcomer, at least I believe a league newcomer. I do not remember seeing Daniel Anderson so far this season in that number 36 machine. You see him right there working his way around the racetrack. New to the Truck Series and currently sitting in the 18th position. So we'll keep our eyes on the debut of the number 36 here tonight at this particular racetrack. But as you can see, the clock has expired here on practice, and it's Mike Floppy Tellier who was very, very quick last week at the Chicagoland Motor Speedway, Andre, on the short run, but had problems saving the tires on the number 97.
Yeah, and you know, that's a problem that if he wasn't able to correct it last week, he's going to struggle again this week because Charlotte, as far as iRacing is concerned, is pretty similar in terms of how it wears your tires down. It can be really brutal on the right front. 3 and 4, the entry narrows up really quickly. You get into that corner, you think it's going to be a wide sweeping turn, and then there's a point where you can actually see that painted blue and white line. It tightens, and once it tightens, man, it is definitive, and you can feel it. So you're cranking on that steering wheel, but you got to be careful because you don't want to wear down that right front. You're going to make that car super tight. You got to watch how you drive, adjust your line, maybe try to put more of the load on the right rear because, hey, if you burn up that right, the car is going to get looser. And as they say, loose is fast.
Yeah, loose is fast, but you don't want to get too loose that you end up spinning around. We're riding on board here with the number 14 of Jeff Price, who was the first driver to hit the stripe for his qualifying lap time. See exactly what you're talking about there right in turn number 3 and 4, where this racetrack has some interesting radiuses when you're going around it. Turns number 3 and 4 definitely feel like they're going to tighten up. Turn number 1 and 2 definitely kind of have to float it in, and it just feels like it changes halfway through turns number 1 and 2. As you see some time starting to jump up there on the board. Currently Jeff Price, and then the number 30. Good to see Julian Tesoro back out on the racetrack after being away for a couple of weeks. I think he had sickness 2 weeks ago, and then last week I think he was dealing with the remnants of the hurricane, and that number 30 back on the racetrack here tonight. Jeff Price completes his lap time, does improve on lap number 2. We'll see how that 30.25 is at the end of the session. So far, so good, although as I say that, the number 29 machine, Adam Newton, jumps up to the top of the board.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Adam Newton is knocking on the door of another win, I think, before the end of the season. He's just been really strong in the last half, and he's just really found a lot of pace, and if he can have a good run here, if he can get the pole, that's going to be huge. Track position at 1.5 miles, especially in these trucks, it's important, and that is a great start to our race if he can pull that off. But 9 lap times posted, now 10 lap times, as Doug Neal is going to slot himself into 7th and then slip down to 8th as Anderson in the 36 is going to rocket up into P3. Jason Gracias also posts a time. His first lap's going to put him 9th. We'll see if he can improve on that as Doug Neal's coming for his second lap. Let's see where he can situate himself. Another driver that's just been coming on strong here late in the season. Let's see. Does he move up the pylon? It was a 30.3 last time. This time it is not going to improve. He is going to remain 9th on the board. And Nate Maurer going to post a time right behind Gracias. Going to be P11 for that lap. Then Gracias completes his second lap. Look at that, Peter. He goes from 9th all the way up to 3rd. That is quite the improvement.
Yeah, definitely a strong improvement. Here is the number 97, Mike Tellier, who is out there on the racetrack right now. Now, thing to note about Tellier is I thought that he might be, running at full speed, but just seems like he might be a little bit slower in that number 97 machine. 157 there through turns number 1 and 2. I wonder here, Andre, if he's kind of saving the tires for kind of that out lap, and he knows that lap number 2 is when he's going to get it done. He's going to go all the way up to the top side of the racetrack here to get it wound up. Oh, he's in the wall. That is going to be absolute disaster for the number 97. He's trying to get it stopped right here on the front stretch so he can at least get 1 lap time in. But the driver who was fastest in practice, Mike Tellier, he is going to have to go back to the drawing board on that one. Meanwhile, out there on the racetrack, here's Joshua Kreider, another driver who is new here to the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. He's going to slot himself up into the top 5. Good debut qualifying session for him. We got just under 45 seconds left to go, but we got some heavy hitters still left to play. Here's one of those, the number 17 of Tristan Maher. Should be able to at least get 1 lap time in, but I think he's left a little bit too late, Andre, to get that real fast lap in as he smacks the wall coming out of turn number 4.
Yeah, that is not the qualifying effort that he wanted to have, especially at a race like this where we're getting a bigger field tonight than we're kind of used to in the last few weeks. If he doesn't get a good in, and it looks like he's not going to get that second lap time in, he's going to have a lot of cars to drive through. And, I don't know how easy or difficult passing is going to be tonight. It's going to be a watch and learn type situation, I reckon. But I can't imagine, regardless, that driving from 17th up to 1st is going to be an easy task, to say the least. But qualifying is completed, and it was 17 drivers who posted a time, although I believe we have 23 in the session. So a few drivers opting to just stay on pit road, start towards the back, and maybe take a patient approach to the beginning of this race. Here is our qualifying results. Adam Newton on the pole with a 30.096. Nate Maurer to his outside with a only 300 of a second back. Brian Underwood, P3 inside of row 2. Jason Gracia starting next to him. Joshua Kreider in his league debut is going to be P5. Daniel Anderson is going to be 6th. Tom Lester, P7. Dominic Tesoro is going to be 8th. Zach Howell, 9th. And Jeff Price started out strong in qualifying, but slipped his way down to 10th on the pylon.
And then looking a little bit further back, let's highlight these drivers starting on row number 6. Dalton Hayes. Haven't seen the number 47 recently here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. Good to see Dalton back here. Julian Tesoro in the number 30 will be rounding out row number 6. Behind them, Vincent Valvano and Doug Neal will make up row number 7. Of course, Doug Neal, Mr. Simbox himself, sponsoring tonight's Simbox 200. We'll be highlighting them here tonight. Melvin Berenger will be rolling off from the inside of row number 6. Philip Scott alongside him. Our points leader entering into tonight has a lot of ground to make up, but one of those drivers chasing him, Tristan Maher in the number 17, well, he calls his own number in qualifying. The number 17 will roll off from the inside of row number 9. Then back behind them are all the drivers who did not take time. The 888 there, you see if Scott Tompkins is the out-of-race official. So Scott will not be making the grid here tonight. Mike Floppy Tellier, the number 97, will be rolling off from the inside of row number 10. Justin White will move up one spot on that outside row due to Scott Tompkins not racing here tonight, but unofficially 20th here. Patrick Morrison, John Flamion, and Matt Cherry rounding out our field here tonight. You've yet to see the number 12 of Matt Cherry actually make it to the grid. So very well looks like we could see just 21 trucks out there on the racetrack here as the iRacing pace car gets us rolling and everyone starts moving out there on the racetrack, and got to start warming up those tires here so we can get green flag racing. Because Andre, remember what happened last week? We had one caution last week at Chicagoland. It happened on lap number 1 on cold tires.
Yeah, it happened, I think, before the final driver had even got across the start-finish line. It was really quick, and it was the only caution. After that, they were able to clean it up, and it was pretty much green to the end. So hopefully we don't repeat that early incident. But this lineup it's going to be really fun because we've got 2 drivers, Tristan Maher and Mike Tellier, that are class of the field, really fast drivers, and due to unfortunate qualifying circumstances, they're going to have to start in the back, race way up front. We got some race conditions on the right-hand side. 74 degrees track temp, 72 in the air. That is pretty low for Charlotte, and I think it's going to get cooler as the night goes on. So these guys are not going to be wanting for grip out there at all. Those trucks are going to be dialed in, and I'm sure the handling is going to be pretty preferable for these guys. But as we round 3 and 4, I do believe that pace truck is going to make the left-hand turn down pit road, and again, iRacing just never quite getting that pace car turn to be very smooth. I feel bad for the driver. Hopefully he doesn't get whiplashed as the green flag comes out in the Geico restart zone. Adam Newton not getting a huge jump. Nate on that outside got a phenomenal start with the help of Gracias pushing him there, and these guys are going to stay door going to turn 1 there.
Yeah, of course, that 971 machine, Nate Maurer trying to go back-to-back after getting that win last week at the Chicagoland Speedway. Great job for that 971. Really was the class of the field on pit road. We had multiple green flag pit stops. We'll see if that comes into play here tonight as Adam Newton, the number 29 Budweiser Toyota, out front of the field. He had a really strong showing a couple weeks back at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Meanwhile, a little bit further back behind them, look at this. This is the number 5 machine, Joshua Kreider, on the inside of the number 1 of Gracias. Gracias started there in 4th. That's exactly where he's running. Didn't have a great practice time in the number 1 machine, but he's always a driver that you have to keep your eyes on as the race continues to wind down here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. Doesn't run a full schedule in that number 1 Toyota, but when he's here, Andre, you really have to keep your eyes on him because he's gone to victory lane multiple times this season.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got a lot of wins under his belt, and that is really impressive for a driver who doesn't run the full schedule. He shows the tracks that he likes. He shows up the tracks that he's fast at, which, spoiler alert, is most of them. And, he's here to win, so you can't count him out, even if he wasn't that fast in practice. You can see he's running within the top 5 here. He's got a pretty solid truck, maybe just trying to feel out the track, feel out the competition, see exactly what the best way to go about passing is. And honestly, that's kind of what I've been watching for, Peters. I'm trying to figure out how these guys are going to make any passes, and it looks like right now the bottom is where you want to go, but it's not necessarily a guarantee. You can see right there, Kreider in the 5 is going to hold off Jason Gracias. And Gracias has a little bit of draft help. That's going to get him a little bit of an advantage, but as they go through 3 and 4, you can see that high line is actually pretty quick. You can defend up there, maybe even overtake, as the battle for the lead is heating up there too. You can see just at the bottom of the screen there, that 29 has a mirror full of the 88 truck, Underwood, absolutely pressuring our leader. Now he's going to actually move up to the high line, which could be the move as this battle behind them continues. We got battling for the lead, battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th. This is absolutely the kind of show that you'd expect from Charlotte.
Yeah, and bear with me for just a moment here, folks. Our live timing scoring has unfortunately decided to lock up on me, and sorry about that. We'll get everything squared away here in a moment. But Adam Newton up at the front of the field is your race leader for now. As around the outside, here comes Brian Underwood. Great start for Brian Underwood. I think he's another league newcomer here tonight. Don't recall seeing that name here, Andre, but he's looking for the race lead here.
Yeah, he's trying to make something happen up there. It seems like in 1 and 2, he can just really hook into that high line and just sling himself out of the corner with a ton of momentum. But 3 and 4 seems to be a little bit more difficult, and that makes sense. 3 and 4 is the tighter of the set of corners, and so the high line is going to be harder to sustain, a little bit riskier to run when that wall is closing in on you. He is staying right alongside our leader. He is not letting him get clear. He is forcing him to fight for this position. And now, unfortunately for Adam Newton, the draft was not on his side. You saw when they went down the back straightaway, there was not a single car in line behind our leader. They were all up against the wall. A little bit of draft help to Underwood in that 88, which helped him, but it still, again, was not enough to get him clear. And behind them, you might have noticed on the corner of the screen, they've gone 3 wide a couple times back there for 5th, 6th, 7th. These guys everywhere are battling. And I think they know that once these tires go away, they're not making any passes. Once the tires are faded, they're pretty much locked into whatever position they're running. So they want to get while the getting's good, and that means passing now.
Yeah, some really good action out there on the racetrack because right now that number 29 machine is going to lead yet another lap here. But, wow, the 88 of Underwood putting on a good fight as they're almost 2 by 2 right back behind him. In fact, oh, wow, look at that. Kreider just trying to hold off the number 1 machine of, the other way around. The number 1 machine, Jason Grassi, is trying to hold off Kreider. But some really good action here at up at the front of the field early on. I mean, we're 10 laps in here, Andre. We've seen side-by-side action kind of all the way through these opening 10 laps, but it's getting testy back here in the back of the field as well. There's the number 97. We expected to see Mike Tellier charge his way up through the field. He's only been able to work his way up to 16th as this is another gaggle of trucks.
Yeah, this is, 7 cars under a blanket just bumping each other down the straightaway. I wouldn't even really call it bump drafting because I don't think they gained much by it. They were just kind of hooked up at the bumpers, kind of weaving back and forth like caterpillars. And I am a little bit surprised that Tellier has only gained a couple of positions here. But I think that does go to show that it's not going to be super easy to make those passes. I mean, Underwood in that 88, how long did it take him to complete that maneuver on Adam Newton? It took him well over 6 or 7 laps, and that was just passing 1 truck. Meanwhile, you've got drivers like Tristan Maher, Mike Tellier, who both of those drivers actually just moved up the grid 1 more position apiece. But they've got a lot of passing to do. And when you're in the field, it's a lot different than just focusing on 1 truck. If you got 1 truck in front of you, it's the only one you got to think about, the only one you got to worry about the positioning. That's something. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, you got to position yourself here kind of almost like a super speedway at times, just with the way these tires are early in the run. When these tires are good and they have a lot of grip in them, you're going to want to position yourself, around these other trucks pretty tightly, try and make up some positions. But what I'm starting to notice now, Andre, is after all those laps of running side by side, things now may be starting to turn. Maybe we're starting to see those tires wear just a little bit because getting a little bit more single file-like here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway as everyone flashes by the start-finish line here. I love this camera as I love all these stationary cameras that we have here tonight at play at this racetrack. So I'd say they're still kind of racy a little bit further back in the pack. Tellier still got his hands full there with the number 9 machine of Behringer.
Yeah, he's got his hands full indeed. He's on that lower line, which it seems like throughout the course of this race has not been the fastest line. The top is where you want to make your passes. It's where you want to be to try to really make much of anything happen. So we'll see what he can do down there. He can maybe get around that 47, but I don't know, that 47's got a lot of pace up there on that high line. And now it looks like Justin White is actually going to abandon ship. He was pushing the 97. Then he ducked down low and said, well, I'm going to go ahead and take this position, please and thank you. And now he is actually going to get that spot over Mike Tellier as they go too wide in front of him. Now he's got to play a bit of a choosing game. Does he want to go with the truck up top, the truck down low? Who's he going to help here? He's going to help none of them. He's going to go beneath both, at least try to. And unfortunately not quite close enough to make it happen. Now side by side again with that number 9 truck in front of him. Looks like Behringer is going to just barely get ahead of Hayes at the line. But this battle is not sorted out yet, and I don't think it will be for quite a while.
Yeah, this group of drivers, I think you're right. I think they're going to be glued together here throughout this run, but I am surprised with Tellier. Maybe he's got a little bit of right front damage. I'm just seeing maybe a little bit of damage on that truck. Yeah, you can just make out right front damage on that number 97. This is a very aero-sensitive racetrack. We saw Tellier make that mistake in qualifying, and I think he's going to need to come down pit road and make some repairs on that truck. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, the number 88 machine, Brian Underwood, has got himself up to the front, and we've got a side-by-side battle for second breaking out. Jason Gracias side-by-side with the number 29 machine, and then look back behind them. You just caught a glimpse of it. They're almost 3 wide back there for a moment. Some great racing happening again, breaking out. Oh, man, I thought there was going to be contact there. The number 69 there, Dominic Tesoro, dropping down to the inside line. Look at the number 30, his brother back there, also fighting through this group of drivers. It's a hornet's nest here on the backstretch. We almost got 3 wide on 3 wide TV. How about that?
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to describe it, is a hornet's nest. These guys are really not calming down in any way, shape, or form. Speaking of not being calm, here's Jason Gracias and Adam Newton door slamming, it looked like, down the tri-oval, headed into the corner. This is for second place. We've got Underwood about half a second in front of these guys, just out of frame. He's leading the race, but it looks like Jason Gracias is not going to get clear. A little bit more contact there. These guys are just at each other's throats right now. Gracias just slowly working his way up the running order, but now he's got to deal with the fastest of the fast. He's got to deal with the guys who've been up here leading the race, proving that they've got the trucks to beat. And Jason's got to figure out a way around him. And right now on that low line, he's not making it easy on himself, because pretty much every pass we've seen tonight that has been completed has been on the high line. So if he can make this happen on the bottom, you know he's got something special behind the wheel of that number 1. But we'll have to wait and see as this 3-truck breakaway is continuing to kind of separate itself from Nate Maurer, who's fallen back a little ways. He's the head of this second pack, what you call the hornet's nest there, with Kreider, Tesoro, Price, Dominic Tesoro as well in there. And again, just kind of, I don't know if you'd call that aggressive side drafting or what you'd call that. But, oh man, runs him up high towards the wall, tries to duck it low, and still, Peter, all of that door slamming, can't get clear.
Yeah, absolutely cannot get clear. Meanwhile, the number 88, Brian Underwood. Oh, contact! And they finally do make contact. They're trying to save it. Somehow they do. And that's going to make the hornet's nest a little bit more hornet-y. Got to be careful what I say here on 3 wide TV. But my goodness, the number 1 machine of Jason Gracias, he's going to lose a ton of positions. Meanwhile, the number 29 of Adam Newton drops even further back. I'll tell you what, I think that is worthy of a 3 wide TV replay to see exactly how that all happened.
Yeah, it was hard to tell from the angle that we're looking at who really initiated that. I think it was kind of a mutual thing. These guys were door slamming for multiple laps. We saw that in real time. So as we pull up the 3 wide TV replay, we'll take a closer look. Looks like Jason Gracias is, I don't know, I think the one car turned up the track a little bit there, but again, it was close. They were definitely both moving towards one another, and they both had a target on each other's backs, but I think that may have been more on Gracias there, and it could have been a product of frustration just from racing so hard for so long.
Yeah, back live, the number 29 machine there on the left-hand side of your screen has dropped himself now all the way down to 15th position. And that is also similar news for the number 1 of Jason Gracias, who now finds himself on the back half of the top 10. Here's the number 17 machine of Tristan Maher, seeing a little bit of left rear damage on the Eclipse Photography F-150. That's going to be bad news for him as he tries to rebound from a last place finish last week at Chicagoland with that hardware failure. Philip Scott in the number 99 machine. He's done a great job from the drop of the green flag, working his way up through the field. He, remember, started back around 16th, if I recall, now running inside the top 10 solidly, and part of this Hornet's Nest group that we've been keeping our eyes on. Got the 69 Dominic Tesoro, who has some right front damage I'm seeing on his Toyota Tundra. Now Philip Scott looking to go to the inside. Look at Doug Neal, who's also had a really good start to tonight's race. Of course, it is the Simbox 200 here tonight. Go check them out if you are a sim racer like myself and you need a button box. Well, Simbox is the place to go and check out. Facebook.com/SimboxPC. Let Doug know that you want one of those Simbox button boxes and he will hook you up. But you can customize them. You can tell Doug exactly what you want. If you want some dials, if you want some switches, if you want some buttons, just let him know kind of what you want. And they are custom, and Doug will help you out. So got to give a big shout out to Doug Neal, currently riding inside the top 5. But Philip Scott wants to get up into the top 5 here. Andre, good run for the number 99 as he's racing with the Tesoro brothers. They are two tough drivers to pass, and Philip wants to go all the way up to the top side, and looks like he's going to do it here. What a power move from the number 99.
Yeah, I think if he had to take it 3 wide there, he was willing to do it, but fortunately it settled itself out where he only had to maybe take it 2 wide up on the top, and he was able to make that overtake. So the 99, one of the few trucks that started further back in the grid that's really been able to find any level of success racing his way up through the grid. Now, going back to Mike Tellier and Tristan Maher, they do have some damage on their trucks, but being this early in the race, only lap 28, we've got a few pit stops ahead of us. And generally, when you've only got a little bit of damage, if it's just some bodywork damage you beat in, scraping the wall, it can affect your handling. It is something that can be fully repaired in a pit stop. So they kind of just have to hold out, play the waiting game until we get to our first green flag pitting sequence, or with how close these guys are, possibly a yellow flag pitting sequence. But either way, just hold out for the first pit stop. They should be fine, and I think later in the race they're going to be able to make up some positions. But Philip Scott, man, and all the way up to now, got around Doug Neal. Right on your screen there, that's a bit of a battle going on with Zach Howell. He's trying to hold off Jason Gracias, who's working his way back up through the grid, trying to regain those positions that he lost in that incident earlier. And I got to wonder how much damage those guys have, Jason Gracias and Adam Newton. I mean, there was substantial contact there, but both of them were able to keep it off the wall. So we'll have to see how that affects their trucks. But there's Maher just on the outside of Justin White, trying to pick up a few more positions here, and getting a little bit sideways. He's giving him a progressive push there.
Yeah, the number 2 of Justin White had such a good truck on the long run last week at the Chicagoland Motor Speedway. I think I see a little bit of front end damage on that truck, as well as that front valence. Does not look 100% square, but maybe that's just the paint scheme throwing me off. Contact behind him. The number 17, Tristan Thuggy Maher, going down to the inside of the racetrack. There was obvious contact there with Joshua Kreider, similar to what we saw just a little while ago. Let's see if we can dial up a 3-wide TV replay of this one right here, going down the backstretch, and we might have to go to the 3-wide TV blimp cam. Jimbo says that we have to drop things out of the 3-wide TV blimp cam to see if we can figure out this one. And let's bring out the 3-wide TV slow-mo cam as well. Let's do all the 3-wide TV things all at one time. Going down the backstretch here, the 17 comes up the racetrack. Yeah, it looks to me like the 17 just came up the racetrack there. Might have been a little bit of net code, though, between those two, as, again, 2 stellar saves out of 2 drivers here tonight, as we remain green flag since the drop of the green at the beginning of the race. 32 laps in, just now closing in on the 50-mile mark here, the 1/4 race distance in the Simbox 200 here in the National Sim Racing Association Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. If you're just now tuning in, we want to thank you for joining us here tonight on 3-Wide TV. Remember to like the video, share the video with all of your friends back at home, and let us know what you are up to in the chat. Ryder Angle is a Philip Scott fan, always here. Philip has moved his way up into 4th, but Andre, you have to think he's been racing really hard back there with the pack, and I just wonder how much damage Philip has done to the tires on that Ford F-150, battling with everyone, as he's kind of held station about 3 seconds behind your race leader, but not able to close in yet on Brian Underwood up in front.
Well, there's no doubt that he's used up his equipment a little bit more than the guys around him. Anytime you have to race your way through the field, you're going to be abusing those Goodyear tires. Luckily, though, given the fact that this is a 75% fuel capacity league, we're not far off from our first series of stops. I would give it maybe 10 to 15 more laps before you see some guys ducking down pit road. So he's dealing with some pretty beat-up tires, but luckily for him, we're at the point in the race where he's not going to have to deal with it much longer. He's just kind of got to hold out and, here comes Gracias to prove me wrong, as well as, is that Jeff Price maybe behind him? No, that is Doug Neal behind him. Proving me wrong. They're coming down pit road already here on lap 35, so maybe really good news for Philip Scott. This is going to afford him the ability to pit really early if everybody else comes down pit road.
Yeah, and of course we just got past that 1/4 race distance, so we're expecting to see pit stops presumably at the 1/4 mark, the half mark, and the 3/4 mark, as we got another group of drivers coming down pit road this time. Dominic Tesoro, Zach Howell, Justin White, Julian Tesoro, Tristan Maher on pit road as well. I think that's John Flamian also sporting I believe, a breast cancer awareness scheme, as of course it is the month of October. Sure enough, it is. There you see that number 22 getting into his pit box. Always good to see that. In fact, we usually see quite a few breast cancer awareness schemes here in the National Sim Racing Association. We've seen that in years past. So we'll see if maybe we can get a couple more drivers next week to bring out the pink paint. Who knows? But for right now, Nate Maurer is kind of holding station about 1.3 seconds behind Brian Underwood up at the front of the field. Then third spot, or at least for right now, is Philip Scott. Then about another 6 seconds back to Mike Floppy Teller, so we still have a couple of holdouts. Jeff Price, Dalton Hayes, the number 36 machine, Daniel Anderson on pit road, Vincent Valvano, Melvin Berenger, and Patrick Morrison also on pit road. Now Philip Scott joins the pit road gang, as does the number 97, and Mike Floppy Tellier. Don't want to make those mistakes on pit road. You want to be nice and fast. You want to be nice and smooth on pit road, like the 971 was last week, getting that win at the Chicagoland Speedway. He slides into his pit box, and Andre, I think, but for Tom Lester, this will pretty much cycle us through the first round of pit stops here tonight. So for right now, out there on the racetrack, here comes Tom Lester in the number 48 machine coming back down onto pit road. Big question is pit road speeding penalties. Did we see any pit road speeding penalties? I'm not seeing anything too indicative of pit road speeding penalties, but Daniel Anderson had a long pit stop time, as did Patrick Morrison. On pit road, Daniel Anderson had a 31-second pit stop. Patrick Morrison, a 25-second pit stop. Zach Howell also having a long pit stop. In fact, Zach Howell having to make an additional pit stop. I believe he's in his pit box right now. In fact, no, Zach Howell is off the racetrack. I'm not sure what happened to Zach Howell. Just making sure if something did happen. Let's see if we can go to the 3-wide TV replay here. Briefly, and golly, Zach Howell did not get to pit road safely, ended up in the wall. Let's see if we can get one more look at this one from a slightly different angle. He's already losing it there. I don't know if he was trying to get onto pit road or not. We might have to back this up just a little bit further, but the number 37 machine, I can only think that maybe, it looks like he pitted on lap number 35, and this happened on lap number 36, so I believe he was just coming off pit road, had cold tires, and watch what happened right here. Middle of the corner, just all of a sudden gets out from underneath them, and unfortunately nothing runs like a deer up into the wall. Bad news for Zach Howell. His night ends early here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, but somehow, some way, that did not bring out a caution flag here as we continue to run green flag at the Charlotte Motor Speedway here on 3-Wide TV. Let's go check out the chat. Chat very quiet here tonight. If you're in the chat, let us know. We'd love to hear from you, see how you're doing, what you're doing, maybe what you ate for dinner, or, what you're drinking. Nice cold beverage here while listening to myself and Andre Graham Bush. Meanwhile, as things have all cycled on out, we're getting word that Brian Underwood had problems on pit road. Now, had a 15.97 second stop for Brian Underwood, but a very long pit lane time. And the driver that was your race leader, well, he just unlapped himself. Andre, this is bad news for the number 88 machine.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he had an issue getting on pit road or coming out of pit road, but it definitely wasn't in the box. I mean, a 15.1 is pretty standard for these guys. We're going to take a look at the 3-wide TV replay, see exactly what happened to our driver who led a big majority of the early portion of this race. We'll see exactly what kind of misfortune befell him here. It is a bit of a tricky pit lane here, especially exiting. It's a very narrow apron, not a lot of room to play with, so to speak, but I'm just trying to dial up this replay here. Here it is. So he's on pit road on the right-hand side of the line. Oh no, was he out of fuel? He was out of fuel, coasting to the box.
Yeah, that's got to be the only thing it could be. I mean, he's just absolutely, completely coasting. You can see there's nothing on that tachometer right there. He must have run it completely dry. Let's see if we can go back and watch it sputter for all of the folks back at home. He's coming onto pit road. You see that those RPMs, they were kind of spiking there for a brief. Oh, you see it just jump up again, and that was it. That's all she wrote. So there was nothing that jumped out to me on kind of the pit stop time. The pit stop time was pretty average for the number 88 machine, but you look at that pit lane time, and you kind of realize he lost an entire lap or so. He's going to have to hope for a caution here, Andre, and you know, we just had that big moment with the number 37, Zach Howell, that has led to his early departure here tonight from the field. But he's got to hope for a caution. I mean, we've had a couple of instances where we almost had a caution, but so far, clean and green through the opening 46 laps.
Yeah, you know, I got two takeaways from that little incident with the 88. Number one, look at whatever lap he pit on. That's how far you can go on fuel. We now have an exact number that you do not want to go past because you will run out of fuel. Number two, the other takeaway is that he has got to be kicking himself right now. Being this early in the race, there's not a whole lot of a reason to stretch a fuel run, especially if you're the leader. You know, everybody else had come down pit road. Everybody else was kind of working their way through their stops, and he just stayed out a little bit too long, one lap too much. And it's a mistake that I think every driver makes at some point. You're going to do that at some point in your career where you're just like, nah, I can stretch it. I can go one more lap, and then you can't. And, man, it's something that you never really forgive yourself for if it ends up costing you a race. But on the positive side of things, he does have a lot of race left. If he gets a yellow flag, the winds could change for him. We'll see. There's Jason Gracias. He is our current race leader. He was able to use that undercut to really get a lot of time on these guys. He had a really fast pit stop as well. So leading the way right now, Nate Maurer right behind him, about 0.2 of a second, right there in frame. He's within striking distance, and I think he's been closing in. So we'll see what he can do. And these two are quite a ways ahead of third place Doug Neal, Jeff Price. Philip Scott back in fifth is 4 seconds back. So we're starting to see a little bit of separation. That pit sequence got these guys sort of unjumbled. Let's say it blew up the hornet's nest and got them all separated.
Yeah, it sure did, but here comes Maurer trying to go back-to-back here. He's a driver who really goes on streaks. He does it in the Thursday night series. He's won quite a few races there this season here in the National Sim Racing Association, and trying to get another one here tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Truck Series. So the 971, he does have some lap traffic just a little bit in front of him. That is the number 94 machine up there, Patrick Morrison, running that Coast Guard scheme right there, and right in front of him is Daniel Anderson in the number 36, and then you find the number 88, Brian Underwood, who was your race leader before that first round of pit stops, just in front of him. So currently riding with 19 trucks on the lead lap. Maybe that will be a little bit shorter here in just a moment, as Nate has caught that number 94 truck. and we'll clear him here off of turn number 4. Let's go check out some of the closer battles out there on the racetrack right now. This is one, the number 96 here, 69 rather, of Dominic Tesoro, as I've got my 69 back to front. But that number 2 in front of him, that's Justin White. Remember last week, Andre? Justin White had such a strong run. He's backing that up right now with a top 6 run in the Grinds Coffee Pouches Chevrolet. But the thing I noticed about the number 2 last week is he kept getting better as the night goes on. So keep an eye on him. He's 6th right now, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if he cracks up into the top 5 before the checkered flag falls.
Yeah, definitely a driver that has a lot of time to improve here. We're only on lap 53, and he's shown that he's got a lot of pace, been on a bit of a roll lately, so definitely working his way forward, and I'm excited to see what he can do here, but he has quite a gap to the trucks ahead here. He's got Doug Neal, Philip Scott, these two going side by side. Philip Scott, our current points leader, I believe, and he's really gotten there, Peter, through consistency. He doesn't have the most wins out of anybody in the league, but he is almost always on the podium. And when he's not on the podium, he's just outside of it. He's not the kind of driver that just shows up at the track and has an off day where he's just back there running 10th, 11th, 12th, 15th. He is competitive week in, week out. I mean, I don't know the exact statistics, but if you were to ask me what driver I've probably interviewed the most post-race because he's on the podium, the 99 is in contention for that because he's just a solid, consistent driver, and he's having that kind of night tonight. Maybe not the truck to beat, maybe not the fastest driver on the track, but right there where he needs to be, right inside the top 5, collecting those points. And while other drivers around him are having misfortunes, like the 88 messing up his pit stop and going a little bit too far on fuel, or you had Adam Newton and Doug Neal having their bit of a scuffle, he's just kind of been clicking off laps, and that's exactly what you want to do. Here are the points there.
Yep, I'm just clicking off laps and solidly inside the top 5. Those two things, if they go together, they usually go together quite well, especially if you are the points leader. Let's talk about his points contenders, though. One of those is the 971, Nate Maurer, who had that huge night last week at Chicagoland Speedway. Philip Scott didn't have a great race last week at Chicagoland, and that really compressed the top 4 drivers in point standings. If this race was to end right now, and isn't that everyone's favorite saying back at home, if this race were to end right now, Maurer would actually leapfrog Philip Scott to be the points leader after this round. And I believe after tonight, there's only 3 races left in the championship. So it could be a really big, important 2 weeks for Nathan Maurer. Yep, next week we go to Kentucky, then Phoenix, and then the season finale at Las Vegas on October 28th. So a couple of races left, but Andre, what I'm seeing right now is it is all looking like we are going to have one heck of a final few races here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series season. A little bit further back, here comes Justin White. He has caught Doug Neal. This is a battle for the 5th position, and back behind them, Dalton Hayes and Mike Floppy Tellier are battling out. Looks like White will move himself up into the top 5. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, look at Mike Floppy Tellier given a bump draft all the way down the backstretch to the number 47 of Dalton Hayes. Tellier pitted on lap 37. Hayes pitted on lap number 36. Tellier with a 1 lap advantage here on tires, but running right behind the Sherwin-Williams paint machine. A couple of these drivers appear to maybe have traded a little bit of paint with the outside wall. Look a little bit closer and see some Sherwin-Williams paint somewhere around the racetrack, but Dalton Hayes currently the better of those two, riding in the 9th position for now.
Absolutely, and going back to what you were talking about, the point situation with Nate currently leading the race and currently, if the race were to end, getting ahead of the 99, that just goes to show how close the point situation is. He's 3 positions ahead. That's just enough to get him into the points lead, just barely. And we've only got a handful of races left. Like you said, any way you cut it, the last few races are going to be very dramatic from a points perspective. And there's a lot on the line for these guys. I mean, Nate right now, as he runs, like you said, current points leader as they run. Not coming into the race, but as they run. Now, if Nate were to spin out, lose a few positions, he loses it. If something happens, if he runs out of fuel, if he DNFs, he could potentially put himself out of points contention. Same thing goes for Philip Scott. They are so close that if any one driver falters, that could be it. There's just no room for error. And I think the season was always kind of headed in this direction. We've had a lot of different competitive drivers, a lot of drivers who could win, a lot of drivers who were consistently up front. And I don't know, it's very dramatic to watch for sure. But Nate able to really pull ahead of Jason Gracias. Didn't take very long to make the pass, and once he did, now out to a 1.7 second gap. And of course, you've got Jeff Price in third. He's 3 seconds back from our leader. You can see the track map on the bottom right. That's where everybody runs right now. And we're starting to see the drivers sort of start to fan out a little bit. We're not seeing the clusters of like we saw early on. We've been green pretty much the entire way. We have not had a caution for cause, I don't believe, unless we had one when I had to step out for a second. But long green flag runs, it really puts it in the hands of the driver. And we still got a lot of drivers in this race. Not much attrition, just a few drivers having issues. For the most part, there's still a ton of trucks in this race. So 63 laps in, anything could happen.
Yeah, still plenty of time to go here as we close in on the halfway mark here in the Simbox 200 here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. But while we take this little moment, while the racetrack the action at least is calming down as, I don't know, we have a battle for third here starting to heat up. But let's talk about some of the series sponsors we have here in the National Sim Racing Association Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. Of course, it is the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series, and that means it's sports season. It's always sports season for the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast, but of course, with NFL going on right now, there's a lot for them to talk about. Of course, NHL will soon be starting up, NBA as well, so definitely want to be listening to the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast, whatever your stick and ball sport might be. And every once in a while, they cover NASCAR as well. So go check them out. Of course, we weren't able to give out any Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Awards last week. Maybe we'll get to give one out here tonight. No Beer Street Journal last call last week either. Of course, if you are a craft beer aficionado like myself, well, not only is there a new video game that you could get called, I think, Brewing Simulator or something like that on Steam, you can go check out beerstreetjournal.com as well. Follow them on social media and learn all about the different craft brews across the country and what they are offering here. And it's always a great place to check out. And then, of course, we got JNR Craftworks. Holiday season is coming up. Of course, it's spooky season. Got Halloween here in a couple of weeks. Well, if you want to add to your Halloween collection or maybe your Christmas collection, JNR Craftworks is the place to check out. There's a link in the description to all of these websites and more other sponsors here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast, the Truck Series. So we really appreciate you for joining us here on 3 Wide TV here tonight. We got Reality Pelez in the chat, as well as RC Plains 59 saying Philip Scott Squad checking in, went out for dinner, got spicy chicken pasta. It was very good. RC Plains, great to see you here tonight. Thanks for tuning on in. Great to hear your spicy chicken pasta was good as well. But out there on the racetrack, things starting to get a little bit spicy here for third, because you know what? I've been watching this battle, and it sure enough looks like Philip Scott is closing in.
Yeah, he had really good long run speed in that first stint before the pit stops, and now as we are closing in on lap 70, probably about 10, 15 laps away from the next set of stops, again, he's one of the faster trucks. He's been closing in ever so slightly on Jeff Price. You can see on the bottom of the screen, just 100th here, 100th there, just kind of reeling him in little by little, but he is he's within striking distance. He's got the draft off that 14, and a little bit of lap traffic in front of him too, which may end up helping, but he's on the move, looking for a podium position. We'll have to see if he can get around him before the next pit sequence begins. Again, I think the last one started on lap 35, so you would sort of expect to see somewhere around lap 70, 75 if you want to stretch it. But I got to think, Peter, some of these drivers may be a little bit weary of stretching their fuel after seeing what happened to that 88.
Yeah, and the good news for the number 88 machine is he continues to run on the lead lap. He has yet to fall a lap down, so he's still kind of in position where if he can get a caution flag, he won't have to rely on the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award to get him back on to the lead lap. But just for right now, we continue to stay green. But as I say that, Jason Gracias is peeling down onto pit road. I think he was one of our early adopters under the first round of pit stops, and sure enough, he's going to do the same here, coming to his pit crew just after we saw the cross flags 2 or 3 laps ago. So that means we're into the back half of tonight's Simbox 200, 100 miles down, 100 miles left to go. Also looked like Joshua Kreider was on pit road. In fact, he's had an extended stay on pit road. Not sure what happened there. Maybe something happened to Kreider, or maybe he's just getting some damage repaired on his machine. We will see whether or not he returns to the racetrack. But currently he scored a couple of laps down. Got some more takers. Doug Neal, number 69, Dominic Tesoro, Mike Floppy Tellier coming down pit road. So now all eyes are on our race leader, Nate Maher. How long can the 971 stretch it before he elects to come down pit road? He stayed out a good number of laps under that last green flag run, but looks like he's getting on the brakes. And oh, geez, bucking Bronco.
Oh, boy.
What do you think? Do you think he got down to pit lane speed? That was tight.
If he got down to pit road speed, it's a miracle because he came in hot. We'll have to wait and see how long he sits in that stall. But, man, that was a super late entry, very aggressive, probably trying to make up some time. He knew that the number 1 was able to pit just a lap sooner, which is going to be worth about 1.5 to 2 seconds on track. So trying to come in hot, mitigate that damage, but may have bit him. Let's see. The right side goes down. We're going to see the left side go up. I'm sure it's going to be a 4-tire stop. Let's see. Does he immediately peel out? Yes, he does. Nope. Penalty. Nate Maher in that 971. Boy, if I was a betting man, I'd have lost that bet because I could have almost guaranteed he didn't get down to the speed limit.
Yeah, one fantastic job getting onto pit road. I think he, though, overshot his pit box, had to throw it in reverse. So we'll see how that hurts Maher here, as looks like the number 1 machine of Jason Gracias has actually leapfrogged him again. We saw that kind of under the last round of green flag stops as well. But, of course, now Maher with the advantage with the fresher tires. The number 88 machine, Brian Underwood, on pit road. Hopefully he could stay under power the entire run down pit lane. Didn't happen last time, but looks like it does this time round. So that's good news. Just making sure he doesn't make another mistake. Now, Philip Scott was able to stretch it another lap in the World Ninja League machine. And you can tell he's excited. He's ready to get back out there on the racetrack. He's kind of moving that steering wheel. Down and away for Ninja Phil. So we'll see how everything cycles out. And at least for right now, it's going to cycle out to the number 1 machine of Jason Gracias being our race leader again. About a second advantage over Nate Maher. But I would assume once those tires warm up here, Andre, on that 971 Silverado, he'll be able to run down Gracias and get back up to the front. But we'll see how long it takes for that to happen.
Yeah, we'll give it some time. He does have that 1 lap fresher tire advantage, and 1 second is a very doable gap to try and close up, especially you got Jason Gracias dealing with some lap traffic here. I believe that is Vinny Valvano trying to move up high, let the leader go, but not really rolling over either. He's making him fight for it, and that's exactly what Nate wants to see. It's going to help him close that gap a little bit. You can see Nate actually close in about a 10th or 2 that lap, which is exactly what he wants to be doing right now. Jeff Price, 5 seconds back from these 2 leaders. He is quite a ways back there. Doug Neal in P4 and Philip Scott back in 5th. And we're kind of seeing a repeat of what we've seen the entire race here, Peter. We've got Philip Scott kind of dedicated to that long run strategy. He stayed out a little bit longer than some of these other guys, and it cost him some time now. He's got those fresher tires, and he's got really good long run speeds. And when you combine that, generally by the time we get to the next set of stops, he's all the way up to 3rd or somewhere close to it at least. And I don't know. I think if he's going to get up there and maybe challenge for the lead, because I think he might have the speed for it. If he's going to do it, he's got to change up the strategy. He's got to maybe take an undercut, try to get in front of these guys, leapfrog them on pit road maybe, because right now he's kind of stuck in limbo here. He falls back to 5th, gets back up to 3rd, pits back to 5th, and so on and so forth. There's the 29, Adam Newton. who has really struggled to recover after that incident with Jason Gracias. A lot of damage to that 29, seems to be slowing him down quite a bit and just not having the race that we thought he was going to have right now, P11.
Yeah, that's for sure. That number 29 who had the fastest lap in qualifying started up at the front of the field here tonight as, like you said, dropped well down the field. Some people might be wondering what maybe that contact earlier in the race did to that number 29, but I think he, if anything, has made the damage a little bit worse on that car, but or truck rather. So at least for right now, we are closing in on 50 laps to go here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the closest battle inside the top 10 between the 22 of Flamian and the 29 of Newton, but a little bit back behind them. Yes, that's where you'll find your race leaders, as we have actually dropped to just 11 drivers on the lead lap. That last round of pit stops just going up and down the scoring pylon. Patrick Morrison in the number 94 had problems in his pit box. A long run down pit road. He might have also run out of fuel. Then Melvin Berenger in his number 9 machine. He had a long pit stop on pit road, so he finds himself a couple laps down. So pit road mistakes have been crucial here tonight, Andre. We saw a lot of great pit stops last week at Chicagoland, but this, in my mind, is a more difficult pit lane to get onto. We saw how difficult it was for Nate Maurer to get that truck slowed up right before that yellow stripe, where that yellow cone begins, right there towards turn number 4. And that is definitely showing here tonight with how many drivers who have struggled to get to pit road, and really how much the field has broken up with those pit stops.
Yeah, it really has separated them. And, you know, maybe I haven't been paying attention previously in the season, but I feel like this race is actually opening the door to more pit stops than what we normally see. If they're averaging every 35 laps coming down pit road, and that's really on the limit of what their fuel can do. And again, we've seen drivers run out of fuel trying to go much past that. Then we're looking at a pause 4-stop strategy for these guys. That's a lot of pit stops, and if we stay green, that means every single pit stop is going to matter that much more, because you're not going to be able to rely on a yellow to punch that field back up if you lose time coming down pit road. If your pit crew makes a mistake, you got to get it back on track. And so the fact that this has stayed green, I think, is making this really difficult for these drivers.
Yeah, that it has, as your race leader will go across the start-finish line. This next time by will make it just 50 more to go here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Just 75 miles will be left in the books here in the Simbox 200, barring a BeerStreetJournal.com last call. Of course, we don't call it a green-white checker here in the National Sim Racing Association. It is the Beer Street Journal last call, as they sponsor that. We really appreciate all of our sponsors here in this series. We're watching Doug Neal as he gets hounded by one of our lapped trucks right there. But then behind him, that's the number 2 machine of Justin White, who is in a battle for position with the number 77 of Doug Neal. And right now, I think Justin White's got the faster of these two trucks.
Yeah, Justin White is definitely hounding Doug Neal. He closed the gap, and once he got there, he's just kind of started looking around the track, trying to find where's the speed, where can I make this move? And it is going to be a pass for the top 5 if he can do it. Coming through the drivable, riding on board, you can see he's closing that gap. He carried a lot of momentum out of the corner. Now down into turn 1, he's going to take a lower entry. We're going to see how that affects his speed through the corner, gradually arcing it down to that painted blue line. And you know, one thing I'm kind of surprised about, Peter, and maybe it's just because the track is so cold already, they have enough grip, but here at Charlotte, the paint actually does have a little bit more grip than the asphalt. And sometimes if you need to get rotation out of your car or your truck, hitting that painted line can actually turn you and make your lap time a little bit faster. But nobody in this race has actually really gotten down that far consistently. Even the drivers who are running down low are about half a lane up from it. So again, I'm not sure if the track is just so cold that they have all the grip they need. They don't need to worry about getting down there. But for some of these guys making passes down low, like Philip Scott getting around the 14 here, that is for P3. Nobody's really using that line down there, which is, you know, just something to keep in mind. It's a possibility.
Yeah, we'll see if any of these drivers make use of that as the track conditions continue to change here as the race goes on. Do want to make mention, though, Philip Scott. I've been really impressed with what I'm seeing out of the World Ninja League F-150, Andre. He was the last driver on pit road, pitted on lap number 74, pitted 2 laps after Nate Maurer. Remember, he was kind of hovering about 3 or so seconds behind your race leaders earlier in the show. Well, he's still kind of about 3.5 seconds behind Nate Maurer, who has now caught Jason Gracias up in the front of the field. But the thing is, Scott now has a tire advantage on the trucks in front of him. I think that's going to pay dividends as this run continues to go on. We expect to see drivers on pit road somewhere around lap 105, but we know the pit window opens around lap 100, so we might have a couple early takers on pit road. But somewhere between lap number 100 and 110 here tonight, we expect to see the final pit stops for tonight's Simbox 200. At least the final green flag pit stops. If a caution flag comes out, well, we know that can completely change everything. But also, look who's just lurking in the background here. That's the number 88 machine of Underwood. Brian Underwood, of course, had that big mistake on pit road earlier in the show. He's been able to stay with our leaders. Of course, he was the race leader when that mistake happened when he ran out of fuel. But currently, a good battle for the race lead. And remember what we had last week at Chicagoland, Andre. We only had 10 trucks or so last week battling it out, but we had one heck of a finish here. And that's what we see out of the National Sim Racing Association every single week here on the channel. These drivers know how to put on a show, even if there's 10 trucks on the field. So I'm really looking forward to see what we have in store, not only for the final green flag pit stops, but to run to the checkered flag as well.
And I mean, mile and a half seem to be these guys' bread and butter too. I mean, it seems like no matter what mile and a half it is, they always are so close in pace. The racing is always great to watch. And I mean, this race is a good example of that. We're on lap 92. We've been green for all 92 of those laps. Our leaders are separated by, I don't know, 900ths of a second. They are pretty much close enough to bump draft each other. And they are sandwiched between a couple of lap cars here, which is kind of exaggerating that as well. But, man, oh man, 92 laps in, he couldn't put a piece of paper between these guys. He got the 971 truck trying to make that move. You can see right there, down against that painted line, he gets to the inside of the number 1. He's just barely at the quarter panel. That's going to prevent Gracias from getting clear, but the question is, can he make the move down here? We know that the 971's been a little bit quicker in this race than the 1 car. That's what we've seen time and time again, but we've also seen that the low line is pretty difficult when it comes to passing. So that 971's going to have a tough time, but I think coming through 3 and 4, he's just barely going to get clear. Now, does he slide up? He is clear. He's going to hold his line. He's going to stay right there. I don't think he needs to slide up. No slide job necessary, but, well, I thought for a second maybe Gracias was going to fight back, but he's going to let off the throttle there a little bit, go side by side with the number 9. Nate Maurer comfortably in the lead now. No pressure from behind. Man, once that 1 truck got past, it was like he just fell out of an airplane there. He is going backwards right now. Philip Scott 3 points back. He's not really gained or lost any time, just kind of on par with these guys.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit surprised with that, to be honest with you, because with these 2 drivers racing so hard up the front of the field, I expected Philip Scott to close in maybe a couple of tenths. If anything, now he's losing ground to Nate Maurer. It's up to 3.5 seconds or so again. I just expected Philip to continue to close in with his tire advantage by just a handful of laps, but that's just not been happening as Maurer again asserts his stature as the fastest driver so far here tonight. I believe has led the most laps and of course been really good on pit road, but the money stops coming up, Andre. We think about 10 laps from now, somewhere between 5 to 10 laps from right now, everyone's going to make their final pit stop. Getting onto pit road is going to be absolutely crucial here if you're going to try and get the win. You can't mess up. You have to be picture perfect, getting not only down onto pit road, but also into your pit box. I think Nate Maurer had a little bit of a slip up that last time. I think he had to throw it in reverse just a fraction of a second. And I have to say, Gracias has done a really good job of actually bridging that gap, applying the pressure. He's got close enough that he now has put pressure on Maurer. Maurer has to be perfect on pit road this next time. He was last week at Chicagoland, but he's going to have to do that here tonight in the Simbox 200 again.
And when it comes to strategy, I'm wondering if Philip Scott's going to change up what he's been doing. Again, he's been one of the drivers tonight that has just been pushing it the most, staying out longer than a lot of the leaders, and he's paying the price in the short run. But the thing is, with him making the time back up on the long run, you got to think, we're not really going to have a long run after this final stop. We're going to have a bit of a shootout to the end. So does that kind of force his hand where he maybe tries to take an undercut, or at the very least, he pits at the exact same time as our leaders, and he does have enough of a gap between himself and the leaders that he's going to know. He's going to be able to tell right when those are coming down pit road, and he should be able to pit on the same lap. It's not like he's right behind them where suddenly they dip down on the apron and he has no time to kind of compensate for that. He's got to go around again. So he could do a lot of things when it comes to strategy, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what it is he chooses. As Gracias has already fallen back 0.6 of a second. Maher able to just extend that lead lap after lap. 88 not giving up this position easily, though. Of course, it is very important for him to stay on the lead lap and not let Nate get around him, because if there was a caution to come out, which again, not super likely, but if there was a yellow flag, that means he wouldn't have to take the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award. He could just take a wave around, which means he could pit with the leaders. He wouldn't have to start at the end of the longest line, and the driver who does get the wave around would have to start behind him. So it's just better all around for that 88 to stay in front of Nate right now. But I don't know how long he can hold him off, because that 971 is there. And 17 coming into the pits hot there, and it looks like he might have some right side damage. I don't know if he had that previously, but the pit sequence is officially underway here on lap 100, like you called there, Peter. We got the 22 truck, I believe, working his way out of the pit stall there as Gracias continues around, as does Nate Maher. Philip Scott 4 seconds back. He's going on again. We're going to go on board here with Jason Gracias. Try to see how he works his way around this track. Does he come down pit road this time? Jason has been one of the earliest adopters for pretty much every pit stop. I would be surprised if he goes around again, and he will. I believe there's no way he's making a stop that late. So staying out one more lap. I think we're seeing a change of strategy maybe for some of these guys.
Yeah, well, Gracias is only dropped, 5 to 6 tenths of a second behind your race leader, Nate Maher. I mean, I thought that 971 was just going to pull away as soon as he got past, because he legged it out to about 5 tenths of a second within probably about 2 or 3 laps, and I thought it was going to be, say, sayonara to the 971 for Jason Gracias, but Gracias has done a great job of being able to kind of keep Maher within kind of an arm's length, and like I said, that's going to continue to apply pressure to the 971 machine as the number 69, Dominic Tesoro, come down to make his final pit stop here on the front stretch. So right now, folks, if you're just now joining us, we've been green flag all night long here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Is that the kiss of death? I don't know. Very well could be. Commentator's curse runs strong here at 3 Wide TV as Jason Gracias with a late lunge down pit lane. Andre, he did not want to tell the number 971 of Nate Maher that he was coming down pit road. He wants to win this race here tonight, as Gracias has to be absolutely perfect. Did a good job of getting to pit lane, but now the onus is on Nate Maher. When will we see that 971 on pit road? Do you think it will be this time by, Andre?
Well, I think if Nate is smart, it's going to be this time by, because you don't want to let that one get too far ahead. You do not want to give him that big fresh tire advantage for more than a single lap, and he's going to come down pit road. Really solid entry right there. Never mind. Commentator's curse. He gets a little loose. Not sure if he made it down to pit road speed. It looked like he was on the brakes trying to get that thing load up well past the pit cone. So we'll see how long his pit stop is. I mean, he surprised us before. If maybe he reached his limit there. You can see a few trucks working their way out, but that was definitely smart of Nate to come down the very next lap. Like I said, with how few laps are in this race, if he allowed Jason Gracias to get too far out front, there may not be enough time to run him back down. So coming down pit road, the left side goes down. He's right out of his pit stall. Now we're going to go on board with Gracias. We're going to see, where do they merge out? Where does this settle out? Keep your eye on the left-hand side of the track, down on the apron. Up in the distance, that is Nate Maher. Now the one car is going to get out front, but the question is, how much of a gap can he build? Looks like just that one lap advantage and a slightly better entry and exit there, Peter, is going to give him a huge about a second and a half I would get just from looking at it. Again, the timing and scoring isn't showing us, but second and a half, 2 seconds over second place and less than 30 laps to go. He's pretty much sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, it sits at 1.2 seconds between Jason Gracias and the 971 of Nate Maher. So we'll see exactly whether the fresher tires on the 971 are able to make a little bit of a difference here over the next couple of laps or so, or maybe the fresh air, the clean air on the nose of that number 1 will be able to get the job done. And that's surprising, Andre. I thought for a while there Jason Gracias' night was completely ruined after that contact with, I believe, the number 29 machine it was, of Adam Newton earlier in the race. Remember, Gracias, I think, fell all the way down to the 10th position, and he has just been slowly and steadily climbing his way back up through the scoring pylon as Adam Newton comes down to make his final pit stop, as well as Daniel Anderson in the number 36 machine. Currently, both of those drivers are in their pit box getting work done on those cars, and I think that will indeed complete our final round of pit stops, with the only exception being Tom Lester in the number 48 machine, who finds himself currently in the 8th position. But Gracias has very much impressed me, I should say. But Maher is closing in. It's now down to about 0.8 of a second, so Maher definitely making good use of those fresher tires here early in this run. But the lap count is winding down here at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, he's definitely reeling him in, but you got to think Gracias is going to make this pass as difficult as he possibly can. He's going to defend it with everything he's got. I mean, there's a win on the line here. And again, Gracias not really in it for the championship. He ran a limited schedule this year, but anytime you see that checkered flag in your windshield is a good night. So he's going to want to grab that win. And he's not really thinking about these other guys and their points battles or anything like that. He's just thinking, I want to go out, I want to get that win, and that's exactly what he's attempting to do. Is look at that. Doug Neal slipping behind that 47 truck. Pretty aggressive little slide by that 47, but the 77's with some damage to that right side, which actually some damage to the left side too. Seems like he's been kind of kicked around a little bit tonight, as damage on both sides of the truck seem to be holding him up. He had a lot of speed earlier in the night. Doug Neal was definitely a top 5 contender towards the start of the event, and then just kind of with that damage falling off pace a little bit there. But it looks like Underwood is coming down pit road, so that is going to give the lead to Jason Gracias, and of course Nate Maher 0.7 of a second behind him. You got Justin White in 3rd. He's about a second ahead of Philip Scott. This is going to be a fun battle for 3rd. Obviously, the battle for the lead is shaping up to be pretty good, but keep your eye on the tail end of the podium there, because Philip Scott and Justin White have been really evenly matched tonight, and both these drivers want to have a good finish here at Charlotte. So all over the track, again, these guys putting on a great show. Looks like Nate was able to close in by about 0.1 of a second that time, and coming into turn 1, look at that, Peter. That timing and scoring just flew down from about 0.7 down to 0.5. A great turn 1 for Nate Maher. This is getting pretty intense.
Yeah, this is going to be a great run to the finish. 23 laps to go. Nate Maher right in the tracks of the number 1 machine. We did see a little bit further back, there was a battle for position. We got this battle for position as well. Philip Scott and the number 2 machine of Justin White, who continues to impress here. Justin White pitted on lap number 100. Older tires, though, by about 5 laps to the number 99 to Philip Scott, who just made that pass to put himself back up onto the podium. Places here tonight. So the World Ninja League now, it's grown from national to worldwide. Number 99 will scoot away. Jeff Price will be trying to close in here in the closing stages on the back of Justin White as well. But definitely interesting to see how everything is playing out. Meanwhile, down to just 1/4 of a second up at the front of the field, 21 laps to go. Andre, Maher is there. We saw this battle for a good number of laps under that last green flag run. Maher was finally able to get ahead right there at the end, but And we'll see what happens here as it's now under 0.2 of a second. Maurer with a little look to the inside. This is some good action. Stay tuned, Sports, joining us in the chat. How's it going here tonight, Jimbo? Tough to see you not in the field, but glad you're able to jump on in for the checkered flag here tonight, watching Jason Gracias and Nate Maurer. And remember, Maurer, if he can get the win here tonight, he will leave Charlotte Motor Speedway as your points leader, regardless of what happens in the remainder of the field. He's trying to do that as he is all the way to the rear tailgate of that number one machine. In fact, let's see what the 3-wide TV camera looks like in that rear tailgate of that number one machine. It's just a bunch of Nathan Maurer and his SpongeBob SquarePants helmet.
Yep, he completely filled that camera up. He's going to try to make a move to the outside. This could spell disaster for Gracias. We've seen so many good runs come from that high side, especially from Nate Maurer. I mean, he's been so strong up there all night long, and he's going to do his best to pinch him down, and the number one does not want to let him take that position. You can see he was right up on the quarter panel trying to side draft him, and we know that he's willing to get aggressive. We saw him in the 29 truck of Adam Newton really get into it at the beginning of the race in a very similar circumstance, and that was before they went on the line. That was at the very beginning of the race when everybody was just trying to figure out what their truck was capable of and where they were running. Now we're getting down to the end of this thing. We know that one truck's going to be aggressive, but unfortunately for him, it looks like Nate was able to get that pass, get clear, and with that damage on the front of the number one, I'm not sure he's going to be able to get back to him.
Yeah, Maurer with another strong run here tonight, trying to go back-to-back here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series in the Simbox 200. Of course, Nate Maurer is a member of Simbox Motorsports here in the National Sim Racing Association, so he wants to put Simbox in victory lane here in the race that they sponsored. Jason Gracias trying to play spoiler there in the Bagcraft number one Toyota. Then about 3.5 seconds off the lead, still Philip Scott, Justin White, another second and a half back. Jeff Price, another half second behind Justin White, definitely closing in on the fourth place driver is Jeff Price. And then Dominic Tesoro, the number 69 machine, running in sixth. Fortunately, his brother is not having a good night. Julian Tesoro must have had some type of pit road penalty at some point. We tried to stay on top of him, but unfortunately for the number 30, he now finds himself being scored in 16th position, multiple laps down. Adam Newton also pit road penalty for the number 29 Toyota under this last round of pit stops. John Flammy also got caught by the iRacing police. He had a extended stay this last time on pit road as well. Mike Tellier in the number 97 machine called it quits after lap number 74 here tonight. So the number 97, who really didn't have a great race at all. Got off to a bad start early on. I think he made some contact with the outside wall, and it just wasn't meant to be for the driver. He was fastest of all in practice when we went live. But a great race here, and Gracias again not letting Nate Maurer get away from him. All it takes is a little slip up here, Andre. Nate Maurer gets up into the outside wall. I've done that here before at Charlotte Motor Speedway while leading. Just had a little bit of a brain fade, smacked the wall, especially off of turn number 4. It gets a little bit tricky off turn number 4. You kind of let the truck wash up to that outside wall. We saw it happen to a couple of people in qualifying as well. So all it takes is a small hiccup for Jason Gracias to capitalize here as we have 13 laps to go and still 2/10 separating our top two.
Yeah, Gracias is not letting Nate run away with it. I kind of thought when that 971 got out front that he was just going to pull away. He was going to build up this massive gap, but that's not been the case. It's been stabilized at about 0.2 of a second. Obviously, Maurer has slightly better tires by about 1 lap, but as the run goes on, the tires get older and older. That advantage is going to degrade, and it's not going to be as impactful as it was at the beginning of this run. So I wouldn't count Gracias out yet. I mean, if he can just get a good series of corners where he gets close enough to maybe side draft that leader and force him into a line that he doesn't want to run, well, he could definitely make that pass. A little further back, 4 seconds back, Philip Scott has taken third place from Justin White, and actually Jeff Price was able to get around Justin as well, so that puts the number 2 truck back in 5th. Philip Scott back on the podium, but a little bit too far back to do anything save for a caution. But the battle for the lead, again, it is stable. 0.2 of a second last time by about 0.2 of a second this time. I think it's going to come down to who makes a bobble, Peter. I mean, who can get the most consistent, fastest series of corners. And look at that. That was a great turn one for Jason Gracias. He gains a few hundredths right there, closes in on the back bumper of the leader. Let's see if he can continue this momentum.
Just trying to keep it fun and exciting for us here on 3 Wide TV as Nate Maher gets us inside 10 laps to go here in the Simbox 200. Gracias there in second. Philip Scott, though, pretty much has the Simbox biggest mover of the race. Well, I was going to say he had it locked up, but Justin White also did not qualify here tonight. So Justin White has also put on a good race from the back of the pack. Forgot that he did not put a lap time in. And, you know, all things considering, it has been very impressive that we have not had any caution flags here. We had a couple of opportunities for them earlier in the race, but it has been very, very strong field and some really good racing out there here tonight. We do have a taker on pit road, unscheduled pit stop for Brian Underwood in the number 88 machine. He's going to come down into his pit box. Might be calling it a night in the number 88. What could have been for him was your race leader when he ran out of fuel on pit road under the first green flag pit stop. I think he pitted on lap number 37, just stretched it one lap too far as, the 971 of Maher catches the number 64 of Vincent Valvano kind of at an inopportune spot. This could allow the number 1 of Jason Gracias to close right back up. The 971 and put a little bit of a gap on the number 1 machine, but we'll go on board with him right now. He's going to close up on Valvano as they head off into turn number 3, coming to 7 laps to go this time by.
Yeah, that lap traffic definitely could have played a big role in this battle for the lead, but luckily Maher was able to get around him next corner there, and the battle did not continue. It wasn't kind of strung out any longer than it needed to be, but Jason Gracias not letting them get away. Turn 1, specifically the entrance of turn 1, seems to be where Gracias is the best on this track. That's where he continually drives it in a little bit deeper than our leader and closes that gap. Now 3 and 4, you're going to see right here, this is where Nate stretches it back out usually. I don't know if he's going to do it again here, but generally just running a slightly higher line gives him a little bit more momentum, and right there you can see it. He just barely inches away, and then coming back to turn 1, Jason Gracias sends it in deep, takes the higher entry. You see right there, closes in big time down on that painted line. Hey, we got a few drivers using the line now, but 6 laps to go, 0.2 of a second. We got some lap traffic up front that they might be able to get to before the end of this thing. It is either one of these drivers' race.
Yeah, now under 0.2 of a second. I'm just curious to know if the number 1 machine, Jason Gracias, it seems like he's starting to struggle with some front grip. I was kind of curious on whether he would maybe try a little bit higher groove, maybe in turn number 1 and 2. We've seen a couple of drivers make that work here tonight, and as I say that, the number 1 does try that higher groove in turns number 1 and 2, trying to get a good run here down the backstretch. Just try and get some clean air on the nose, get some extra downforce on the front of that Toyota Tundra. It's going to be interesting to hear from Gracias at the end of this one just how much he thinks that damage might have affected the handling of that Toyota Tundra, but I'm sure Maher doesn't care at this point. Maher just has to keep his nose clean as he puts the number 77 Simbox machine of Doug Neal now 1 lap down, puts only 8 drivers on the lead lap. And how about the number 17 Tristan Maher? He needed a good race here tonight, but at least as things stands right now, he's going to be scored by all 3 drivers ahead of him in the point standings entering in tonight, because Nate Maher is on his way to possibly back-to-back victories. Philip Scott looks at a podium here tonight if he can stay where he's at. And then Justin White also finishing inside the top 5. So Maher really having a bad run here right in the middle of the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series chase. He will have to try and rebound next week. We're down to 3 laps to go. Race lead still kind of hovering in that 0.3 bracket. Next week, we do go to the Kentucky Speedway. That's going to be a fun one. Love going to the Bluegrass Stage. And of course, it is a flatter 1.5-mile racetrack. And then we go to Phoenix. That one's going to be wild, 125 laps out in the desert. And then rounding out the season, another 1.5 mile. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and I know that one always puts on a good show here as, the number 94 machine, they thought better of going back up there on the racetrack there, did the number 94 machine, lets the leaders on by as the white flag will come out this time by in the Simbox 200.
As they approach the white flag, Nate Maher has been able to get out to a 0.4 of a second lead. This is as comfortable as he's been pretty much since he got the lead back. Again, not much of a buffer there between them, but it's enough where he doesn't have to make an absolutely perfect lap here. All he's got to do is get around 2 more sets of corners, bring it home to that checkered flag, and he can get it done. And if he wins, walk away with the provisional points lead after tonight. The 971 is going to round 3 and 4 for the final time down on that painted line. And unfortunately for the number truck, time was not on his side as they have reached the checkered flag. And Nate Maher wins the Simbox 200 here at Charlotte.
Yeah, great job by the number 971 machine here tonight. Getting the W, back-to-back wins as well in the middle part of the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series Chase. I mean, that is absolutely huge for the 971 and the Simbox Motorsports crew, as the number 30, Julian Tesoro, gives him a little bit of a congratulatory bump there on the rear tailgate. We're going to get to see Maher burn it down here again on the front stretch for the second week in a row. How about that? Pretty crazy that we get to see that as Maher lights him up. And I think, if I recall, Andre, with Maher's win last week and his win this week, that puts him at 4 wins on the season to go with that win on the Super Speedway at Talladega and that win at another mile and a half, Atlanta Motor Speedway, earlier this year. So Maher, with that 4th win, kind of gets himself kind of into a elite category. Only Jason Gracias has more wins on the year at 6. So Maher cracking into that 4-win column, and how about that? Good job for the 971 tonight.
Yeah, you gotta love anytime somebody can get 2 wins in a row. I mean, just buffing up that stat sheet here at the end of the season, just on an absolute hot streak. Exactly when it counts, too. I mean, obviously, getting a couple wins is always good, but to get a couple wins now, when we're this close to the end of the season and the point situation was as tight as it was, I don't think there's a better time to get hot, and that is exactly what Nate's done. A lot of speed out of that 971, and better news for him yet is that, like you said, Peter, 2 out of our remaining 3 races are going to be at intermediate tracks just like this. So they should be right up his alley in terms of driving style and his skill. So things are looking good for him. We don't want to give him the commentator's curse or anything like that, but I'm just going to say things are looking pretty good for that 971 truck. We do have some drivers piling in, waiting on their interviews. Just waiting on one more, I believe. We'll get into those shortly.
Well, let's see if we can dial up Philip Scott. I was looking for Jason Gracias out there, but don't think Jason is here. Maybe he had to run. Sometimes he has to do that. But I think we've dialed up 3rd place finisher Philip Scott. Got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, a little bit short here tonight, but you started deep in the field here, and I was just wondering qualifying didn't go well, obviously. Do you think that played a part in finishing 3rd tonight?
I think a little bit. That plus there were a couple little factors. I think it was qualifying, but I felt really good going up through the field. And then that little almost wreck that backed everyone up by a good couple seconds. I think that cost me a little bit of time, and so I was always playing catch up. But I was doing a lot of overcuts, obviously, and I realized that was working pretty well. Except on the 2nd or 3rd one, I pushed it a little too hard, and kind of burned up my stuff. Lost a tiny bit of ground, but got it back on the next one. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the run anyway, because long run's obviously something I've worked at for a long time. This is the best race at a relatively long run race at a relatively normal track.
Well, you definitely have worked on that, and for sure you put on a good show for your fans that you always have here in the chat here on 3 Wide TV. Next week, Kentucky, another mile and a half that tire saving comes into the mix. So what are your thoughts about going to the Bluegrass State next week?
Yeah, I haven't done Kentucky in any league, NSRA or TNR, and like has to have been like 4 or 5 seasons. Kentucky's a really weird track. Turn 3's really odd. Turn 1 and 2 are fine. Turn 3's super odd. You can never seem to get the line right. And so I'm just gonna... my strategy will probably be the same as this time, but hopefully I don't completely bomb qualifying, so I have a better shot to win.
Yeah, we'll put a little bit of extra practice in the qualifying lap next week there, Philip. Before I let you go, any shout-outs you'd like to give out?
Yeah, go check out worldninjaleague.org. I keep updating the site pretty regularly. Keep on adding fancy web design to it. So yeah, go check it out.
All right. Well, Philip, congratulations on your third place finish here tonight. You will lose the points lead, but you're definitely still in the mix next week at Kentucky. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, we were unable to find tonight's runner-up, the number one machine of Jason Gracias. He had to run. So it's time for our good friend Andre Graham-Bush to catch up with tonight's race winner back-to-back for Nate Maurer.
How you doing, Nate? It's Andre up in the booth. You got a copy?
I got you, man. How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing good, and you're doing pretty good, too. 2 in a row there, Nate. Another great run here to mile and a half. It seems to be that these kinds of tracks are right up your alley, really good for your skill set, and you just had a flawless race. I mean, the strategy worked out really well. You had the long run pace. You were able to make some really good overtakes and use up every bit of the track that you had to. Just tell me a little bit about your race, man.
2 in a row. I don't remember winning last week, but yeah, never thought I was going to win here tonight after my poor performance last night in Xfinity car. Yeah, I qualified good, but I know you got to say here, and I figured with how good everyone's been driving here the past couple of weeks that we're going to have a caution. It was probably going to be pretty late in the race, and I just wanted to save my tires, so I kind of got ran over. And then I kind of got scared when Jason got them inside, and I freaking rode the wall down the back stretch, which made me go back like 8th or 9th, and then just saved my tires and just rebounded the whole way back up to towards the fair. And yeah, Philip Scott was really scaring me there. He was flying through the field that first run, and then second run he was coming up through the field, and I thought he was going to be the one to win here tonight, him or Jason. But yeah, it was fun racing Jason there with about 15 laps to go. I knew it was going to be hard to pass. He blocked me down the front stretch, and then I got to his outside going to 1. I'm like, this ain't going to work. And I just tried going another car length on the throttle farther into 1 than he did, so overdrove it into 1 and finally got around him. And then his teammate blocking for him on the front stretch there. Vincent, that was fun too. And I just kind of went through the grass and off track to get around him. But yeah, I had a really good long run speed here tonight, which is kind of unfair for me at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
You had me second guessing myself there, Nate. I had to pull up the broadcast from last week. You did indeed win last week, so it is in fact 2 in a row. With the win tonight and the great run last week as well, you are walking away from Charlotte with the unofficial points lead going into the last 3 races of the season. What does that do for confidence moving forward?
I'd have to know what tracks we're going to yet to know what my confidence level is. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, I never thought I was going to have it even being up here towards the top, especially with guys with like Tristan Maher and Philip Scott and Julian. I know Julian had to miss last week because of not having power from that hurricane. But I never thought I'd be up here. I looked at the points pretty much for the first time last week, and I was sitting like P2 behind Philip. I'm like, what? So yeah, see what kind of tracks we got coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we can keep having the momentum we are.
Yeah, we're coming up on Homestead. I believe Las Vegas is going to be the final race in between those two. You've got Phoenix. So 2 mile and a halfs and then an intermediate should be pretty fun to watch. Now, one thing I want to ask about, because I'm always curious on the driver's perspective on these kinds of races. Last week, we had one yellow flag for cause. It happened on lap 1, and then after that, it was green all the way to the end. And then this week, we did not have a single caution for cause. You guys did a phenomenal job out there. You were able to keep it green all 132 laps. Do you prefer longer runs like that? Is this the kind of racing that you like to see, or are you? Does it make it more difficult when you don't have cautions to kind of give you a second to breathe?
Yeah, I prefer no cautions. I think you see the better drivers towards the front. I mean, what was it, like a 2-car breakaway tonight, 3-car breakaway? I don't know. I personally like no green flags. I mean, no caution, no caution flags. I don't know. I like it better. I don't know. I just like long green flag racing. I like pitting on the green. That can make or break your race for you. I know I came in P2 behind. I forget somebody new, which I'm glad to see all these new drivers in here. It's awesome. I passed him getting on the pit road, and I guess he got a speeding penalty. I'm not really sure, but yeah, no, I just like green flag pit stops.
Yeah, I have to agree there. I like a methodical race, and when it stays green, you got a lot of strategy and a lot of patience that kind of shines through, and it is a lot of fun. Also, just to your point there about the driver that had the issue on pit road, it wasn't a penalty. It was the 88, and they actually ran out of fuel, so they had to coast all the way to their pit stall.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they just barely squeaked in there, so that was rough, but again, congratulations on the win, Nate. 2 in a row, and really looking good here in the chase. Before we let you go, is there any shout-outs that you'd like to make?
Yeah, got shout out for you and Peter for broadcasting this every week. Shout out to Justin for running this truck league. I don't know what he did in the past couple weeks, but I'm seeing a bunch of new drivers in here. And even though you might not get the result you wanted tonight, keep going at it, man. I'm just glad to see all these new guys in here. Shout out to my sponsor, Redneck Nation, and Simbox. Need a button box, set up Simbox PC. On Facebook, shout out to Scott Tompkins for sitting there and probably watching the movie and not having to really do anything tonight. And shout out to Jason there at the end of that race for racing me clean. Me and him kind of got into it last week in the Xfinity Series. But, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen since that. But he raced me clean tonight. It was hard, but it was fun. But we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Nate. And again, congratulations on the win.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.
Race winner out of the booth. And, I'm not surprised, Peter, that he likes the longer green flag runs, because both races that have essentially been caution-free, he's walked away with a win. So I think he's a bit of a long-haul driver. That's what he's good at. And I got to agree with him. I like that style of race, and it's put on a great show for us these last couple weeks. And it really just it's a style of racing that you don't always get to see. Strategy doesn't always matter in these races, but when it stays green, it matters more than ever. So a lot of fun to see. We do have our final race results. Nate Maher, of course, walking away with the win. Jason Gracias coming up just short, but man, it was not for lack of trying. Very hard effort by Jason Gracias brings him home in second. Philip Scott with another very consistent, solid night brings himself home on the podium, though he does lose the points lead after tonight. Jeff Price in fourth, and Justin White actually gets back up into fifth. I believe Dominic had actually got around him at one point for fifth, and then Justin reclaimed that. So Dominic Tesoro P6, Dalton Hayes P7, Tristan Maher in eighth, as Peter pointed out earlier in the night, just hitting a bit of a rough patch here in the chase, which is not when you want to do it. Doug Neal P9, and Daniel Anderson's going to be P10.
Vincent Valvano will be the first truck 2 laps down, finishing in 11th. Tom Lester in the number 48 machine, who had some interesting pit strategy, trying to go as long as he could all night long. He finishes 2 laps down in 12th. Melvin Berenger in the number 9 machine, series debut. He finishes 13th. Adam Newton in 14th. A lot of these drivers having a pit road penalty at some point here tonight. Julian Tesoro in the number 30 finishes 3 laps down. John Flamian in 16th. Patrick Morrison finishes 17th. I think he finally hung up the gloves there late in the number 94. Brian Underwood in the number 88. He hung up the gloves a little bit early. He finishes in the 18th position. And then back behind them, Mike Floppy Tellier. He left the field with 62 laps to go. Joshua Kreider in the number 5 finishes in 20th. Zach Howell finishes 21st. He was the first driver to fall out of the field, and really the only driver to succumb to significant damage after a issue under first green flag pit stops here tonight, or actually just after green flag pit stops on cold tires in turn number 4, but no caution flag came out for that, and we were caution-free all night long here in the Simbox 200. I want to give a big shout-out to them, our race sponsor here, facebook.com/SimboxPC. Go check them out if you need a custom button box, because our good friend Doug Neal will hook you up. You customize it as well. You let him know what you want, and he will put it all together for you, as well as the other series sponsors here in the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. Go hit them up for their podcast. There's a link to their Podbean in the description. Go, if you have not listened to it, definitely have a listen. MaxGrafix.co. Of course, we saw the couple of trucks painted by MaxGrafix.co. Great place to get your own custom iRacing scheme. Good friend Chris Darling of the league paints those up, makes them look nice and spiffy. Brookstone Animal Hospital for the second week in a row. No Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award, but I'm sure Nate Maurer isn't too upset about that. But Brookstone Animal Hospital, located in the greater Atlanta, Georgia area. Go check them out, brookstonevet.com. Taz Racing Customs, making custom die-casts of your sim racing car or your real-life NASCAR that maybe you just can't find a die-cast of. Well, Taz Racing Customs, they make custom die-casts, so let them know what you want. They'll make it. BeerStreetJournal.com. Best place to check out craft beer news from across the United States. Go check them out. Eclipse Photography. Of course, we saw them on the number 17 here tonight. Simbox, we've highlighted them. And, of course, JNR Craftworks, I mentioned earlier in the show. Great place to check out some customized stuff that maybe you want to put up for Halloween. Maybe you want to put up for Christmas. Maybe you want to put up for Thanksgiving. JNR Craftworks is the place to go to check out some really cool custom machine stuff that... you can kind of make it your own, put your own name on it, so on and so forth. But a great place to also find a gift for the holidays as well. And also another sponsor here in the league. But Andre, 1.5 miles this week, another 1.5 miles. Do we think we could make it near on 600 miles of green flag racing next week?
Well, I think it's definitely a possibility. These guys are just next level when it comes to keeping it clean, and all season long, we've been really surprised by the lack of cautions, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So we'll just have to wait and see. If you want to find out for yourself, tune in next week. Again, another 1.5 miles. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the point situation tightening up considerably as we have a new points leader tonight, and things are just getting really shaken up from that perspective. So a lot of fun things coming up, and it's going to be quite a great end of the season, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely will here on 3Y TV. But folks, thanks for tuning in here tonight. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give the video a like and a share. Share it on Facebook. Let your friends know that this is what you do on Friday nights. If you're one of these drivers, if you're Nate Maurer, share it because you got the dub here tonight. Let people know. I think there was something about some golf cart or something, if I recall, last week. I wonder how that all panned out. But folks, thanks for tuning in, as I said, and we shall see you next week here on the channel. But until then, stay safe, and we shall see ya!